So it's just going around and mixing it basically.
Exactly.
How long do you work that?
So it runs, this cycle right now, it'll run for about an hour. And it's
Okay.
going to run on this end of the machine, which is the load end, where we put all the carbon stocks and food scraps into the machine. And so it'll mix that, it'll incorporate those materials, and then because the auger is at an angle, it's always moving the material from this end of the bin to the opposite end where it's going through its heat cycle. So we can continually add into the system every day, upwards of a ton of material each day. And we, each week, take about 2 yards worth of material out.
Okay.
That has gone through its heat cycle. Usually when we empty or fill the bins, it's still at about 130, 140 degrees at that time. So then it gets loaded into pallet bins, and then we move that into a separate building where it will cure for another couple months. You know, so that you can just melt it
Okay.
off
Okay.
at that point.
Yeah, and dry out, I suppose. Yeah.
And because we're in an enclosed building, we can run this 12 months of the year. So there's no stopping.
Okay. So the big question everybody wants to know is, what did it cost?
Yeah, so this is $140,000 piece of equipment, but that includes the entire structure, so the enclosure, and the motor, auger, cannery, assembly. And
140,000.
Yep.
And you handle all the waste from your own.
Campus-wide.
And how many people is it feeding? And how big is the campus cafeteria system?
Campus cafeteria is feeding around 400 people. So we're a small campus of 650 students, all in total.
And then you're also bringing in waste. I stopped at Chequamegon Food Co-op. They said they're delivering waste. So what percentage of waste is kind of coming in because you have extra capacity?
Yeah, it's about 50-50 from what compared to the volume that we collect campus-wide. The cafeteria, all the dorms, all the office buildings. We even collect the paper toweling from the bathrooms and any of the shredded paper from the offices.
So when you say 50-50, 50% cafeteria, 50% everything else?
Yep, everything
including
else.
dorms?
So that it would be 50% outside of campus.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got 450 people in a cafeteria, 600 students total in dorms. How many employees?
Oh gosh, I don't know that number off the top of my head. And then we, so like at the Black Cat in the Chequamegon Food Co-op, we distribute these 32-gallon rolling trash cans here. So we have 18 of these in circulation, including the Ashland School District and one Catholic school here in town. So we provide a service where we pick those up every week and drop off empties. So 18 of those come here, and then we have 80 of these household buckets that go to residents in the city of Ashland.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's kind of a volunteer effort. So they take the bucket home, they fill it with their food scraps, they bring the full bucket back to us, and then they just grab their empty and go. So we don't actually have to do the collecting, we just deal with the mess.
And these, do you pick up with a special truck, or is it lifting?
Yeah,
you got the arms?
vehicle here at the college and then a trailer.
So it picks it up like...
Right. So this machine here will actually unload those bins for us, which I can demonstrate.
And that...
because the machine is in our way.
And that's part of the 140 came from this included?
Right. And I can't go all the way because the machine is in our way, but it'll actually pick that whole thing up and flip it, and you can bounce it and shake material right out of those trash cans. These, when they're heaping full, are right around 100, 150 pounds, depending on what's in there. A lot of times it'll be coffee grounds or spent baked goods. Just Chequamegon Food Co-op, again, we collect all of their dinnerwares. So the compostable forks and knives, spoons, bowls, plates, So we'll have a whole container of that, which is quite light.
And how well does all that stuff compost in the system?
So we originally we put a whole one of these, so 32 gallons worth of just the forks, knives, and spoons. In here, within 3 days, they weren't discernible any longer in the system. And the key with that is that maintaining those temperatures again up above 140 is what we found.
And what about the system maintains that?
What about the system?
Yeah.
Mainly oxygen. The right moisture content is huge, and then the carbon-nitrogen ratio.
And the oxygen just comes from the mixing?
From the mixing, exactly.
And the what's your ratio for carbon?
So it's a 20-to-1 ratio. So for every 32-gallon bin that we put in at least a 64-gallon, if not 2 64-gallon containers of carbon. Okay.
All right, and that's paper towels. What else?
Mostly leaves. So we have a volunteer organization in Ashland that does lawn raking and leaf collecting, and so they'll send me emails, and we take their truck and a trailer and drive around and collect leaves. And
What
then
do you
we
do?
stockpile.
You stockpile?
Yep, right. So that, and then shredded bark, shredded cardboard. So yeah. There must be a big stick in there.
What percentage of your time is dealing with this?
Of my time in particular, 2 days of the week, roughly.
2 full days a week is just dealing with the whole
But
system?
we have dedicated, so between students and other staff here at the food center, there's somebody that works here at least 4 hours every day, Monday through Friday, to, load the feedstocks in, plus the carbon, stocks.
So have you ever costed it out? I mean, I'm thinking of other cities
Yeah.
that have to, municipal budgets,
Yep.
and what it would cost to run this.
Yeah, on this scale, I don't know that you could have an in-vessel system large enough necessarily. That would be a great question for Green Mountain Technologies.
What would be a great question?
Whether an in-vessel system could be applied to a municipality.
Well, I don't mean a whole municipality. I mean small
Yeah.
ones.
Right.
Small or even just getting one on a pilot scale.
Yep.
I'm working in Milwaukee on this
Sure.
project, and what's becoming clear is that they have other options. They can send it. People can run it down their sewer or down their drain, and it can get chopped up by incinerator and sent to a digester, where
Yep.
it's also a good
Right.
use. So they don't need to do 600,000 people this way, but this produces a product that can be used, and so I guess
And
I
you
think
can run it around the clock.
Yeah.
24/7, 365 days of the year.
so. I think what everybody wants to know probably is how does the cost of doing it this way compared to, say, because the nice thing about this is if you locate it near the waste and near the use,
Yes.
within within a 2-mile, 4-mile radius versus hauling it to an outdoor system,
Right.
13, 14, 15
Sure.
miles, so it's just penciling out the economics.
Right, and I think the jury is out on that. We haven't looked into comparing the two systems, weighing them against each other.
Wouldn't it?
I do know that I can speak for the fact of our operating costs here, so for labor and overhead, that it does pay for itself.
Really?
Yep.
How's that?
Just because of the demand for the finished product, for
Okay.
the compost itself.
You're selling it?
Yes.
How much?
Right. So since last October, we generated 38 yards of finished material that then went
30 cubic
were
yards.
mostly sold back to the farms that supply Northland College with fruits and vegetables.
Okay, so they're buying. The farms are paying for compost.
Paying $150 a yard.
$150 a cubic yard.
Yep. For this material.
And obviously they think it's high quality.
Yes, right. I mean, it's guaranteed free of weed seeds in particular. That's a big one, right? And then the other part is just the diversity of inputs that go into this system. We've even collected fish waste from Bodine's Fisheries in Bayfield. We've also have a gentleman who has a mushroom business, so he'll bring us his spent spawn bags. we'll add that into the system, which does a great job to inoculate, get those beneficial fungi in there.
Are there particular farms who would be willing to take a phone call
Yes.
to get their perspective? Because
Absolutely.
I've come to this very preliminary conclusion in Milwaukee that the farms down there, they see the value in compost, but they don't seem to be quite interested in spending a ton of money. The total cubic yard demand that we were able to gather from a survey that even stretched well outside of Milwaukee area, was like 286 cubic yards a year.
Okay.
And maybe that sounds like a lot. I don't know. 286. How many?
So, one of our farms that has, I'd say, at least 10 acres in production and veggies, bought 10 yards at a time.
They're buying 10 yards at a time.
Yep.
What?
So
How
that would
often?
be in spring and then again in fall.
So 10 yards spring and fall.
Yep.
And you've cranked out, how much did you say? 38.
Since
So
October.
Since October.
And I would guess we'll have pretty close to that amount again this fall.
So 38. So maybe I'm wrong to say that 286 is not a large amount. I mean, it's a fair amount. The gardens. So what's interesting is the gardens, just 3 gardening programs. When their wish list, if they could afford it, they would buy 1,300 cubic yards.
Okay.
Some of that mixed with topsoil 50-50, but for existing gardens, or for new gardens, some compost 100% for topping off.
Sure.
But what really got interesting is I just kind of came up with these numbers this past week, was green infrastructure, potential demand for compost for green infrastructure, just from Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District, not from the city, was 20,000 cubic yards a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But I think we have to look at that, the use of compost outside of the scope of just replenishing the nutrients that were lost from growing food, specifically fruits and vegetables, right? And looking at it more as carbon sequestration. We're building carbon in the soil. We're increasing water holding capacity, reducing runoff, erosion, holding that soil in place. All the other benefits that come with compost, right? The addition of compost to the soil. And so when we talk about those kind of volumes of finished product, we could apply those to larger, more industrial farmlands, that are being managed somewhat unsustainably.
Right.
I think we could address a lot of our environmental issues.
Well, it's all a question of figuring out the economics of it, and the right scales, and also the recipes, because when we're talking green infrastructure in Milwaukee, it's basically to grow turf and to soak up water. Isn't necessarily the same recipe for growing tomatoes. Also, contamination is a huge issue.
It is.
Depending on your market, it may not be as big an issue, if there's banana peel stickers in the green infrastructure. But can you say something about contamination in terms of both? People are asking about microplastics now. There's some of these bags are not certified organic. So you're saying that it did a great job on the spoons, but in general, what's the contamination issues that are a challenge?
The biggest one that's come to light for us recently has been, I think it's PFLAs. So what's basically Teflon, right? The spray-on coatings that are on a lot of the biodegradable dinnerwares, and they do not break down neither in a composting system or in the environment.
And these are supposedly recycled or biodegradable?
They're biodegradable,
but they've got
products,
PB.
But I think it's PFLAs.
PFLAs in them.
I think. I'd have to look in my office at the exact.
So that's a matter of, we got to perfect all this stuff.
Exactly.
We got to perfect the companies that are making these products need to figure out how to make them.
And then the other source of pollution again would be from your feedstock. So where are you sourcing your carbon? Was it off of somebody's lawn? Did the lawn have garbage? Could have microplastics. It could have a lot of herbicides and fertilizer right in there. That's going to end up in your composting system. That's a huge one. and then garbage that's in your food scrap sources as well. So it's coming from cafeterias.
Right.
Even the U.S. Composting Council requires that you do an audit of your feedstocks to ensure that you're not adding plastic and other pollutants into your system. We're very fortunate that we have a close working relationship with all of our sources that we're collecting from, where we don't have that issue. Finished material, after it's aged a couple of months, and it's done with its heat cycle, fully broken down, and ready to be applied back on the land.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
And I always have people smell it, because
Yeah. Wow, that's excellent.
when you walk into that room, the first thing people do is plug their nose, right?
Yeah, they think it was bad.
And I always say this is the less glamorous side of food production. We all eat, right? But none of us, hardly any of us, actually deal with our own waste. And so we're taking responsibility for that side of the equation, and to turn it into this magical substance that feeds plants and creates healthy soil and so forth. So